Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Auction for the Soul. This week's Parashat is Perashat Hukkat. We are getting ready for this very profound time of the year. Perashat Hukkat isn't the regular Parashiot where the regular Parashiot just happen and you read them, but historically, people are unaware that Perashat Hukkat was actually a very controversial date. Almost about 800 years ago, a little more than 800 years ago. It was the year 1244 in the Church of Notre Dame. There was a priest who came out and decided that he was going to set the Sifrei Torah in the church all on fire. And on that day there were something like 24 different cases of Sifrei Torah that were set on fire. And I'm not sure where that background sound is coming from, but if you can mute yourselves so we can just stay focused. Anyway, so what I was saying was that there were these 24 huge containers of Sifrei Torah, Gemarot, Nevi'im that were all set on fire. And the Parsha that it fell out on that week was Friday. It was the Vav Tammuz, the 6th of Tammuz, and that week's Parsha was Perashat Hukkat. And now it's interesting because there's no mention anywhere. We know the date historically when this happened in France, where the Sifrei Torah were burnt. It was the day of the burning, big book burning in France. We know about it, but there's no mention of a fast. There's no mention of anything like that. And the reason why no one did anything, as far as the rabbis of the time, as far as executing it as something in our Jewish calendar that reminds us of this unique time in our history, is simply because it was Parshat Hukkat. And I want to begin with that story. Let's just see how the parsha begins. Moshe ve'el Haron. God comes and he speaks to Moses and Aaron, and he says, "Zot Torah Hukat." Right? This is Zot Chukat Torah. This is these are the statutes of the Torah. Shativa Hashem that God had commanded. Like was saying, He says, "What Daber Bnei Israel? Speak to the Jewish people. V'ikhu elecha para. Take for yourself a para, a cow." Aduma, that is red. Temima, complete. It's my daughter's name, Temima. It means perfect or complete. Asher ein ba'amum, which has no blemish. V'ala alea ol, and there was no yoke. This animal wasn't used for any kind of work, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it says this interesting introduction. This week's parsha comes right after the idea the parsha of the Korach. And Korach, we know, had his issues with Moses. And he specifically had issues with a couple of the commandments, specifically the commandment of mezuzah, specifically the commandment of tzitzit, the tchelet, the blue string that was in there. And we spoke about it last week a little bit. But these were his issues. And those issues led to the downfall of so many Jews. And in this week's parsha, what does it say? It says, Zot Chukat Torah. This is the Chukat of the Torah. Now, it's interesting to note that the word Zot is grammatically incorrect. If you were writing this pasuk, you would say Ze Chukat Torah, not Zot Chukat Torah. It says Zot in the feminine as opposed to the masculine. Now the question is why? We'll come back to that in a moment. So again, verse says these are the statutes of the law that I'm going to give you. Now the word chok is specifically a kind of law that is different than a mishpat. A mishpat are a set of laws that you and I understand the reasons. It's human logic. Torts, you got damages, you did something to me, I get reimbursed and so on and so forth. But chukim are laws that have no actual understanding. There's no understanding of it at all. There's no rhyme or reason to it. And this is exactly what Rashi points out. He points out that the idea of the paraduma, basically you get a complete red heifer, a red cow, you take it, you slaughter it, you take its ashes. There's a whole process of using the ashes, taking the ashes and putting it into a special container. These ashes have a special, profound, paradoxical power. And that is that when the Kohen takes these ashes, he would use it on individuals who were unable to bring an offering in the temple because they were impure, tumat met, right? They have the impurity of the dead, which every single person today, by the way, has a status of being impure from the dead. We can't get rid of it. There's no Beit HaMikdash. And the Kohen would come, sprinkle this on you, and then magically You were completely purified, no more impurity on you, and now you can go ahead and do your work in the offering in the mikdash and so on and so forth. Now, however, the Torah points out that the guy, the Kohen who's sprinkling it, becomes impure as a result of purifying this other person. Now, how does that work? Maybe on a scientific level, it's like quantum entanglement, because you have these different types of molecules that are moving around, and somehow we're interconnected. Impurity has to move from one place to another place. I have no idea. It's all spiritual. Okay, but listen to what Rashi says. He's our buddy. He says, Zot Hukat Torah, Lefi Shahasatan ve'umot ha'olam. The Satan and the nations of the world, Monin et Yisrael, they taunt the Jewish people, Lomar ma mitzvah hazot, ma tam yesh ba. What is this mitzvah? What's its purpose? Lefikach katav ba Hukat. Okay, and that's why when it comes to this mitzvah, it says it's a chok. Gzeirahu milfanai en lecha reshut leharher achareha. This was a specific type of a statute, okay, which is we have no idea how to explain it. It's unfathomable. It is beyond human logic. Okay, that is what Rashi says over here. So now you have a law that is given to us. The Torah itself does not want you to be a fool. It wants you to be someone that is using logic and reason. It wants you to question. Okay, excuse me. And it wants you to have the ability to live a life that is grounded in reality. So, well, why is God giving me a mitzvah here now? Why para aduma? Now, I'll say this. The challenge of Judaism is that it's so hyper-rational, is that we think that we understand parts of it when in fact we don't. When we give an explanation to a mitzvah, we call it ta'ameh ha-mitzvah. The taste, a tam, a small little tam of the mitzvah. But you and I don't really understand the mitzvah. You think you understand why we wear tzitzit? You think you understand why you light candles on Friday night? Right? You have no idea. The Midrash tells us that Shlomo HaMelech tried to understand, King Solomon tried to understand with all of his wisdom, and he said he'll figure it out, but this wisdom is still distant from me. He's specifically speaking over there about para aduma. The wisest man in the world can never figure out the logic of it. He figured out the time for lots of things, but try to explain to me a red heifer and it purifying, and then the purifier becomes impure. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Okay? So the Midrash says that God says to Moshe, to you, I'm going to explain the paradox of para aduma, but to every other human being, I will always hide this mystery. Now, but the Midrash does say that before Mashiach, or during the Messianic era, God will finally explain to us the mystery of para aduma. Okay, so we see that God deliberately makes a conscious effort to keep this mystery of para aduma hidden. Shlomo, with all the wisdom, he should have been able to understand para aduma, but God said, I have to keep the secret, and you can never understand this. Now, there's a reason. Okay? So I'll tell it like this. In the distant, the Jewish people will understand this one day, but they're not going to understand it now. But now we can't understand it. So what does God want to prove? That he's smarter than us? Does God want us to feel dumb? That, oh, yeah, I got it. I have a special secret. I'm not going to tell you. Why does God hiding the understanding of the para adumas? Why does he want this to be a paradox? I believe it's there to teach us a very powerful lesson, and I think it's very much tied into everything that happened in Perashat Hukkat and everything that's happening in the world today since October 7th. The lesson is that there are things in life that are inexplicable. I can't explain it, right? There's certain things that we go through in life that I can't understand. Why does some person die? Why does somebody get divorced? We come across all kinds of terrible paradoxes, things that have no rhyme, no reason, no nothing. How do we understand it? How do we make peace with ourselves? Logic would say just the reverse, right? A person's righteous, he's noble, but he suffers. Another person is wicked. He does everything that he's not supposed to do. Right? He's not eating healthy. He's he's wealthy. He's prospering. He's doing everything that he should not be doing, and somehow this guy is succeeding. And the question is why? It makes no sense. This is, my friends, the para aduma. Okay, the laws of avelut. Okay, the laws of mourning. They have relevance every single day of the year, of course, right? There's a special time for mourning, and we spoke about this earlier. And para aduma is a special time of the year where we recognize that we don't understand these things. Tzaddik v'ralo, tzaddik v'tovlo. It doesn't make any sense, right? Sometimes something profound that happens can't be explained in logic, can't be explained in human terms. The story of Purim, right? Do you think we understand what happened there? We don't understand it. Para aduma is a mitzvah that is obscure. Okay, we learn about it in the Chumash. We don't really know what it's talking about. Para aduma out there is just eludes us. We don't understand it. And I think this is exactly why para aduma is coming out after Parshat Korach. Korach, he's like, I got it. I'm going to use my mind, my high intellect, and try to understand these things. Moshe, why? If you have a home that's filled with Sifrei Torah, why do you need a mezuzah? The mezuzah has exactly the same verses in the Torah. Why do I need a mezuzah on the door? And Moshe says, yeah, you need one. Well, okay, if the purpose of tzitzit is to have a blue strand in it, what if to remind you of God, what if the whole entire beged, the whole entire shirt that is sewed into the tzitzit, the tassels, is made of the same material, the blue? Does the tzitzit still need it? I'll be reminded constantly. And the answer is yes. You still need it. Well, does it make any sense? Rabbi, do I need to really wait, 6 hours for meat and milk? Rabbi, can I wear my tefillin like this and like that? Can I go ahead and break Shabbat 10 minutes earlier? Does it make a difference now or later? And the answer is yes, it matters. I can't explain to you why. I know that I believe that there is a God. I know that I believe that everything that happens in the world happens for a reason. It says Zot Chukat Torah. Perashat Hukkat after Korach, to remind you that people like Korach, you don't get it. Korach was lacking humility. The para aduma is a reminder right now. We're learning it. Why? Because we think we understand. We don't understand. I don't understand the pain. I don't understand the suffering. I don't understand why these things happen. I don't understand why anti-Semitism is spreading. I don't understand God's plan. But I know there's a plan. Right? And maybe that's why it says over there in that pasuk, it says you have to be tamim. Right? Tmimut. It says para aduma temima. Okay? Temima is 100% perfect. Tmimut is also something that is used to describe our emunah. Do we have tmimut? Is our faith perfectly standing? Okay. Now we know that the end of the parsha talks a little bit about the paradox of God telling Moshe to deal with the Jewish people who were complaining about water. And what does he say? He says, "Take your staff, and I want you to speak to the rock." And what does Moses do? He takes out his staff and he hits the rock. And now he's punished. And this great leader, him and his brother, are not going to the land of Israel. It's over. Game over. Punished. You did not, lo hamantim bi, you did not show, you did not believe in me. Could anyone in the world say that Moses and Aaron didn't believe in God? What happened over here? Long, very long, interesting parsha. But I suspect there's something called smichot ha-parshiot. When you have two different ideas that are juxtaposed to one another, you have to ask, why are they there? Why is this story tied to that story? Why is Perashat Hukkat tell me about Korach, para aduma, and then eventually Moshe and him hitting the rock and sinning and dying, being punished for his mistakes? Now, remember, God says that I want you to speak to the rock. Why? Every single time up until now, what does he do? Moshe is always hitting the rock. He's hitting everything. And God specifically says, take your staff, but I want you to speak to the rock. Why did he do that? There's something profound about the power of thought, the power of words. And there's something about the miracle of inaction that he wanted to teach the Jewish people, and Moshe thought they were not ready for it. So what does he do? He hits the rock, disobeys, did not believe in God's plan. You think, Moshe, you understand my logic? You don't understand my logic. No man can understand my logic. It's a chok. It's a paradox. You'll never understand it. We will never understand the challenges of our lives. Well, the only thing you and I can understand is how you and I will respond to the circumstance that we find ourselves in. That is it. That's the only thing that you and I have control over. Everything else, the circumstance around me, I don't know why it's happening. Now, not later, today, tomorrow, yesterday, I don't know. the connection of Paraduma and the death of Moshe is this. This is what I think, right? The nature of the Paraduma is that when the person that sprinkles it, he becomes impure, okay? To purify the person that is impure, the person that's impure becomes pure, the person that is purifying becomes impure now. This is exactly what happens to Moshe in this week's Parsha. Moshe, according to some sources, say that he sacrificed himself. He knew that if he would have spoken to the rock and the Jewish people, had they not done teshuvah as a result and they sinned instead, there was no turning back. Something as subtle as the word, if they can't see a miracle in inaction, they were lost forever. So Moshe chooses to hit the rock, deliberately disobeying God so that he could ensure that the people will survive. This is what the Para Aduma itself does. It sacrifices itself to purify those that are impure. And even the person that's trying to purify, he becomes impure in the process. That's exactly what happens to Moshe in this week's Parsha. Moshe becomes impure as a result of his sacrifice. You know what the sacrifice requires? What the greatest sacrifice is? This is the sacrifice of the intellect. Do we have the humility to recognize that we just don't know? I don't have the answer. I can't explain everything. It's okay not to be able to explain everything. It's okay not to be able to understand everything completely. It's not okay not to try. Even King Solomon, who knew that God was hiding this, tried his whole life to understand this. We try to give answers to questions, but never ever believe for a moment that you've answered the question. I'm going to end with this. I've said this before, but it's always worth repeating. The quality of our lives are often an expression of the quality of the questions that we ask. It's not about the answers. Judaism is all about the questions, the 4 questions at the Seder, Pesach. Right? We teach our children to question everything. Are we questioning and accepting the questions, and learning to grow through our questioning, or are we the kind of people that get stuck because we have no answers? It's a fictitious illusion to believe that the answers actually answer the questions. When it comes to our lives, we can make believe we understand. I don't understand. I surrender myself to the situation. I say, God, please help me understand one day. But there's going to be a time where every single one of us will have this super clarity of knowing that this is the reason why this had to happen. This is the reason why the shoe fell here and not there. This is the reason why that person had to suffer, and so on and so forth. This is the reason why that person got married and that person did not. All of it. It's going to be understood. There's a day where we will say, Bayom hahu yiyeh echad u'shmo echad. It's complete clarity. Well, we don't know that God is one today. No, we do, but we don't see how all the things in life are really all interconnected. We are all interconnected. We're all one. Korach's demise was the fact that he thought he understood. There was no humility. We're a week, a little bit more than a week away from Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, the destruction of the temple. We're a few weeks away from the Tisha B'Av. These were people who thought they knew. Pride, proud, I'm smart, I'm a rabbi, I know. No. The Pasha reminds us that everything is a chok. Zot Hukat Torah. Why is it Zot? Zot, feminine, not masculine. Feminine, the feminine power is the power to receive. Open your hands and receive everything. You want to understand how to deal with a chok? Just open your hands, and everything will fall into place at the right time, at the right place. The only thing you and I need to be reminded of is that the only thing we can control is our response. The circumstance, the question, I will never fully understand it. I do my best to try, but everything in our lives is a chok. Hashem wants us to do what is right. What is the right thing to do? To love people, to do charity, learn Torah, to be a giver and not a taker, to be someone who is patient, to be someone who is kind, who's understanding, who's loving. That's what God wants at its core. He doesn't want to hate. Every person that comes out and spews hate, that person, he's the antithesis of what God wants. He's rejecting godliness. God, he says, my ways are peace. All roads to God are peaceful ways. Anything that's beyond not that, not godly. Zot Hukat, the Torah, is a reminder that when we see a world that is completely unhinged, it's lost, a world which seems that the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer, just remember it's a chok, but in the not too distant future, you and I will have all those questions answered, hopefully sooner than later. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom Baruch. Thank you so much for listening. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.